Andy Duncan, could you come to the stage, please? Just so you don't need to run away, we've made sure there's toilets and food, etc. for you here today, okay? And we'll get the weather for a change. You having a good time? Free in 2023. Andy Duncan. Good afternoon. What a sight. Superb. I'm going to do three songs, right, by two different writers. The first one's a guy called Matt McGinn. I'm going to do a couple of Matt McGinn songs and then a wee song with Jerry Cinnamon, the great Jerry Cinnamon. Yeah. So thanks very much to Neil Mackay and to James Scott for inviting me here today. The first song's a wee song called The Healing Man, which is quite apt for the occasion, I think, for the battle for freedom and seeing off the Romans, and now we're seeing off the English, and then hopefully seeing off Westminster ultimately. I think it's quite simple to me. A country should rule itself. That is it for me. It's as simple as that. A country should rule itself. So here's to Indie Ref 2. 10,000 Roman soldiers to the Healings they came north. For they had conquered millions, the Tiber to the Forth. They landed in Loch Lomondon. For the night they thought they'd lie, but from somewhere in the Cobbler Hill they heard this terrible cry. Where Gregor-lie, Gregor-loo, come up and fight, you cowardly crew. I'll have ye fall, my pot of stew, you're feared to fight with me. On taps of the great big healing man, with a kilt and a big claymore. He looked a bit ferocious, so Caesar sent up 4. He sat down for his supper then, by the bright light of the moon. But he lost his taste for vino, when the 4 heats come rolling down. Where Gregor-lie, Gregor-loo, come up and fight, you cowardly crew. I'll have ye fall, my pot of stew, you're feared to fight with me. He then sent up Mark Anthony with another 55. Says, bring that big rascal back to me, or I'll have you skinned alive. They heard the clash of metal then, until the night was done. But then they heard this terrible cry with the rising of the sun. We are Gregor-ly, Gregor-loo. Come up and fight, you cowardly crew. I'll have you for my pot of stew. You're feared to fight with me. He then sent up 1,000 men, this healing man to crack. But out of all that 1,000, there was only one came back. Oh, Caesar cried, soldier, he's heed all black and blue. That big rascal has been cutting us. There's no just one, there's two. We are Gregor-ly, Gregor-loo. Come up and fight, you cowardly crew. I'll have you for my pot of stew. You're afraid to fight with me. So Caesar picked his suitcase up. He ran southwards then. He was doing nearly 55 miles an hour. He still couldn't catch his men. Maybe you'll all be wondering while I tell this tale at all. But it has a simple moral, and they call it Hadrian's Wall. We are Gregor-ly, Gregor-loo. Come up and fight, you cowardly crew. I'll have you for my pot of stew. You're afraid to fight with me. Thanks very much.
Well done.
Thank you. That's a second song McGinn wrote this to. It's called Rich Man's Paradise. And that's kind of where it remains as long as Westminster's in control. The elite do well, and the workers don't get what they deserve. I think if it was an independent Scotland, we all agree it's going to be way fairer than that. The words you can sing along with me, hopefully. Rich man's paradise, poor man's hell. Rich man's paradise, I'll bid fairly well. Bread and roses all the way for the chosen few. Ain't thinking of my friend, but I'll be thinking of you. There's no pity, city, gentlemen with heads held high. Won't see a homeless lady with a little homeless baby. Little teardrops come a-glistening in his eyes. Rich man's paradise, poor man's hell. Rich man's paradise, I'll bid fare thee well. Bread and roses all the way for the chosen few. You ain't thinking of me, my friend, but I'll be thinking of you. Our industries are dying, the working folk are crying, fearful of the things being done. Wailing, you'll still see them sailing. The morning clouds, they will hide the golden sun. Rich man's paradise, poor man's hell. Rich man's paradise, I'll bid fare thee well. All the way for the chosen few. You ain't thinking of me, my friend, but I'll be thinking of you. Someday bells man's paradise, poor man's hell. Rich man's paradise, and it fare thee well. Red roses all the way for the chosen few. You ain't thinking of me, my friend, but I'll be thinking of you. Thanks very much. Two songs with Martin again. Right, I'll leave you with this one, guys. Enjoy the rest of the day. Here's to Indy F2. Here's to freedom, independence of Scotland. The song kind of sums it all up. Are you threatened by words of an empire, money and gold? I don't be man. Start again. Are you threatened by words of an empire, of money and gold? Are you told of the Scotland? Are you threatened by words of an empire, money and gold? Will you stand and be counted, or will you shut and do as you're told? Hope over fear, don't be afraid. Tell the Westminster Tories, Scotland's no longer your slave. Carpe diem, you seize the day. Rip the chains from a unicorn, show them that Scotland is brave. Will the TV man call you an nationalist for rejecting the lies? Are the words of a few worth a bomb because he wears shirts and ties? When they tell you that Scotland's not great, are you really surprised? Will you stand and be counted for something that money can't buy? Hope over fear, don't be afraid. Tell the Westminster Tories, Scotland's no longer your slave. Carpe diem, will you seize the day? Rip the chains from a unicorn, show them that Scotland is brave. Are we happy that nuclear weapons are still dumped on the Clyde? No! Fighting wars for the wealth of a few, now how many have died? You can bury my bones, but the truth of this cannot be denied. Will you stand and be counted? I'll be stood there by your side. Hope over fear, don't be afraid. Let's hear. Tell the Westminster Tories, Scotland's no longer your slave. Carpe diem, will you seize the day? Come on, Scotland. Rip the chains from a unicorn, show them that Scotland is brave. Will the media tell you that poor England, they don't want you to go? And the taxpayer-funded MPs will tell you, just tell them no. Don't think so. But in Manchester, Nottingham and Sheffield, they already know that we're fighting for them, and it's only the start of the show. Hope over fear, don't be afraid. Tell the Westminster Tories, Scotland's no longer the slave. Carpe diem, will you seize the day? Rip the chains from a unicorn, sun's shining down on you for the rest of the day, guys. Thanks very much. Independence!
Thanks very much, Andy.
Well done, Andy!
Somebody's handed in a pair of specs, so if anybody's lost their glasses, could they please come to the stage and get them back to them. Can also say a big thank you to Now Scotland for the funding for the day's event and previous ones and ones that are coming up this year. Our next speaker is Charlotte Ahmed from Now Scotland.
Come on, folks, a little rain never stopped us do anything, did it, Bruno? No. How many people here want to get rid of the Tories? Yes! How many people want an independent Scotland free of Tories? Yes! Now is the time, folks. We have to do this now, because if we don't, you've only got to look at what's happening in America now and other parts of the world to know what's down the line if we don't fight them here and now. We've got a Tory government not content with attacking the poor, not content with attacking people on benefits, attacking people trying to get here and make a home for themselves and sending them to Rwanda, but they're now attacking working people with their attacks on the rail workers, the health service, the education service, the posties, etc. I want every one of you to get behind those workers in Scotland and elsewhere who are fighting, because what they are fighting for is the same thing we want. We want freedom and we want justice. We don't want to be ruled by millionaires and the interests of the billionaires, and that is what's happening now. They leech us for every last bit of money they can get out of us. And in Scotland we know what that means. All the wealth that we could have accumulated from the fossil fuels, gone. Where's it gone? We don't have housing that's fit for purpose in some parts of this country. Where's that money gone? To Westminster and in the pockets of the wealthy, and they are still doing it. The cost of living crisis. I don't know if you drive a car. I don't drive a car very much. 3 weeks ago, cost me 30 quid to put petrol in my car. It's a wee car. Yesterday, it cost me 50 quid. And I don't have to drive a car to work. So the attack on working people and ordinary people continues. And as long as we let it happen, they will continue to do it. They don't care. And that's why this fight for independence is so important. We can unite, and that word unity is key in our movement. We have to unite all parts of this movement. We have to reach out to parts of this society that may not have been part of our movement. And I want to give a nod to Pride Day today. It's a Pride March in Glasgow, and to all those people fighting for social and economic justice. We are with you, because if that is not part of our fight for independence, we will not win the support we need. And I know that we can do it. Whatever group you're in, let's unite. Let's see bigger marches. Let's see local activities. Let's talk about climate change and how we can do something about it here in Scotland. Let's talk about building more schools and better houses, better insulated houses. Let's talk about alternatives to fossil fuels. We have the resources in Scotland to make all this happen if we have independence. So we need to fight, folks, because as you know, nothing is ever given to us for free. We have to fight for it in a fight of our lives. And if it doesn't happen now, we're going to end up, I saw somebody with a banner on the back of his badge, this is what's coming. Racism, fascism could be down this corner, round the corner, if we don't fight for our freedoms now. So join us, folks. Thanks everyone here for coming. Thanks all under one banner for keeping this fight at the forefront and keeping it going through lockdown. Get to your meetings, get to your demonstrations. Let's unite and win this time around. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Charlotte. Our next speaker is Mr. Alan Smith, SNP MP. Come on. Thanks, pal. Great to see you. It's great to see you all in SNP-controlled Stirling. It was Robert the Bruce that said, "He who holds Stirling holds Scotland." And the SNP has the member of the Scottish Parliament for Stirling. The SNP has the MP, the first and the last MP for Stirling, myself. The SNP just won the Stirling Council election. You're in Bannockburn Ward, which has not a single Tory. I first spoke to the Bannockburn March in 2004, just after I was elected into the European Parliament. And it was a wet day. It was one of the one days in Stirling that it rains, and it was the steward that said the march was getting a bit straggly, and he said, "We need to close ranks." And I had to keep my speech short, and that was basically all I was able to say, and it's what I'll say again today. We need to close ranks. The SNP does not have the monopoly on the Yes movement. The SNP does not have the monopoly on independence. And I will work with anyone of any party and none towards winning our country's freedom. We cannot afford to be divided. We have to be united. Because goodness me, look at what's going on in the wider world. Scotland's independence has always been rooted in the wider international construct. One of the first things William Wallace did when he was appointed High Protector was to write to the Hanseatic League the letter of Lubeck, saying that Scotland's open for business and we want to cooperate with our European continent. The Declaration of Arbroath was addressed to the Pope in Rome, stating Scotland's claim of right and independence. We have always been an internationalist movement. The whole point to independence is making our decisions at home and speaking with our own voice in the wider world and being that force for good. That is what we can win back with independence. Now, we're here at Bannockburn battlefield, a moment of decisive turning point in Scotland's national story. But I'll tell you something. I don't want independence because of the old battles, the old flags, the old songs. We've got all that now. That's what made us who we are, and I want independence for the future of our country, for the future of our ways, the future of our community. The fact that we are one Scotland and where you're from doesn't matter. If you're here, you're one of us, and you're welcome, and we need more people. So I'm proud to stand with everybody of all political stripes and none to win our independence, and goodness me, we need it, and we see why we need it on a daily basis from this hapless, rotted government at Westminster, in a rotted institution that I promise, having been thrown out my first Parliament, I really look forward to getting thrown out my second. But I'll tell you something else. Independence is not about who's the current incumbent at Downing Street. It's about the future of our nation and building that better community. COVID has shocked a lot of people out of their preconceptions politically, and they're looking to us, the Yes movement, for hope, that we're serious, that we're decent people, that we're of their community, that we're at our posts, and we're up for the challenges ahead. And we are. And it's uniting the clans at events like this, and it's being together to agree where we agree and to put the things we disagree to one side that matters. COVID's been tough for everybody, but getting things back on the road is a fantastic feeling. And I was delighted to see so many yesers in Stirling here today. You're all very welcome. I hope you enjoy our hospitality. It's been great to see you. Now let's get on and win it for Scotland. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Alan. Big round of applause for him.
Next up is Eva Comrie of the Alapa Band.
Friends and fellow Scots, I cannot tell you what an honour it is to speak to you today in such a sacred and precious place. We come here today to pay our respects to those who in 1314 fought and bled and died, and those who fought and lived to see what we will be able to see next year. It was the fight of their lives, and it is indeed, as Charlotte said, the fight of our lives next year, when we have the opportunity to regain our freedom and to liberate this country. But as Alan said, we're not here to do it for the sake of the past, but we're here because of the here and now and the future of all of Scotland. Now, all of us have lost very much in the last few years. We've lost friends and loved ones, and we've lost many of our heroes who shared the same values as we do and who had the same hopes as we have. And so, we must, as Alan so very eloquently said, unite the clans. I will, as Alan has said, work with every single person in this country to make our country the land of plenty that we know it is, but to ensure that all of its resources and all of its riches help each and every one of us to create for all of the future generations of this great land the potential and the glories and the beauty that we know we deserve and we can deliver when we have in this country and in our hands the levers of power and the levers we need to turn our economy around, to feed our pensioners and our children, to pay our single working people a decent, honest wage, so they're not having to choose between paying their gas or eating a warm dinner, so that food banks are eradicated and are no longer a suppurating sore on the surface of this land. So, I hope, for once, the rulers of this country and the leaders of every political party in the United Kingdom, and most especially in Scotland, will remember the lesson that the enemy learned on this field 708 years ago, and it was this: on the second day of the battle, when it seemed unclear as to whether or not the foe had been vanquished, all of a sudden there came from behind Gillis Hill in the forest there the small folk, and we stand here today to make sure that the small folk of Scotland have a voice. They are currently voiceless. They live in poverty and in horrible houses, as Charlotte said, and as I said earlier, some of them can either heat or eat, but they can't do both. Well, these small folk were comprised of the men who were too old or too infirm to fight, and the women of Scotland who looked after the men, and the men that were on the battlefield. They helped to bury the dead when they weren't feeding the living or tending their wounds. And it is the women of Scotland who must ensure that there is unity within our movement, because you only have to look across the ocean at what is happening in the United States of America to understand how very important it is to be able to say that we have the equality of the sexes, which in Scotland is so precious. So, Boris Johnson, are you watching? because there is nothing that the hammer of the Scots feared more than when the people of Scotland stood as one. And that, my friends, is what we will do. We will create an independent Republic of Scotland, which is for every Scot born here, arrived here, newly arrived here, and who will, as Alan said, be welcome here. Bring us your refugees and your asylum seekers, because in Scotland they will not be bound and gagged and handcuffed and dragged onto a plane to be sent to a stinking, rotten foreign country. Instead, they will find what we like to call breed, barley brie and painted room. One last thing, because I cannot get these words wrong. Our demands, they are most moderate. We need not kneel, our cause it is high. Of true women and men there is no dearth, and our victorious rallying cry shall be, we want the earth, this earth, our country, our Scotland, free Scotland, independence 2023.
Thanks for that, Eva. Next up is SNP Councillor Ian Massey.
Hello! Hello friends! What a wonderful sight this is, to see so many happy, smiling faces and the saltires flying high in the wind. It really does warm my heart. It's an absolute honour and privilege for me to be standing here on Bannockburn Field today, a place that has such a historical and spiritual importance to the people of Scotland. Doesn't it make you feel proud to think of our forefathers who's bravely fought on this very land for the same reason as we are gathered here for today, independence for Scotland? And now today, with the Scottish Government beginning to announce the way forward, the spring in our step is back. We can see it, even in small ways, at the hub in Perth, with the volunteers drawn from all parties and none beginning to work together on what it will take to get the job done. There's a buzz about the place that wasn't there even just a couple of weeks ago. For the Yes movement in general, things have been a bit thin, fractious in the last couple of years. It's not been easy, but we've reached and passed the turning point. Maybe for some of you out there in the crowd today, by just standing in this field at Bannockburn, being surrounded by so many like-minded people, then perhaps this could be your turning point, when you again start to feel the determination, the fire, the strength, and the strength. Lost that. Fire, the strength that was present in the movement in 2014. We have so much to look forward to. The current shambolic state of the UK, particularly with the cost of living prices, with so much more, it's not a reason for not holding an independence referendum. It's only independence that can give us the power to get ourselves out of this mess. And deep down, people know that too. Now is the time to be confident and courageous, make ourselves be seen and heard. We've got information available to us now that to persuade people, the information that in 2013 and 14 we could only have dreamt of. Let us use it, let's build on it, let's take people along with us and have those conversations bit by bit that will bring people across to us. Demand that the unions explain to us why we should stay in their precious union. Point out the opportunities on pensions, on the EU, on renewables, and on the well-being economy, and ask them why staying in the UK is even being considered. Think of the ultimate prize, a free and caring Scotland. Think of coming back here to Bannockburn in a couple of years' time for the best Bannockburn day ever there was. Let's go out there and make sure we grasp the prize. Independence for Scotland. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Ian. Next up to give us a few tunes is Andy Doherty. Come on, come on! Whoa!
Hello, comrades. My name's Andy Doherty, and I feel the weight of history on me today. I'm facing King Robert I of Scotland here, who offered some very wise advice to his followers and his troops before engaging battle here on this very site in Bannockburn, 1314. I'm supposed to reproduce that, so I hope you'll help me reproduce it. So I'm going to thank Scots We Hey. Scots we hey, we Wallace bled, Scots from Bruce is oft times led. Welcome to your gory bed, all to victory. Now's the day and now's the hour, see the front of battle hour, see approach proud Edward's proud, chains and slavery. War would be a coward's grave, war would fill a coward's grave, war say rises be a slave, let him turn free. War for Scotland's king and law, freeman's sword will strongly draw, freeman stand or freeman fall, let him follow me. By oppressions, woes and pains, by our sons in servile chains, we will drain our dearest veins, but we shall be free. Lay the proud usurper low, tyrants fall in every foe, liberties in every blow, let us do or die. Right. This is a song for in celebration of our colleagues in the Tory party. It's dedicated to them. Written by Robert Burns 2.5 centuries ago. It was written specifically for them, I think. Scottish men, farewell our ancient glories, farewell into the Scottish name, say famed and martial stories. The sword runs to the Solway sands, and Tweed runs to the ocean, to mark where England's province stands, like a parcel rose in a nation. What force or guile could not subdue through many a warlike ages, is wrought now by a coward few, for hireling traitors' wages. The English steel we could disdain, secure in valor's station, but But English gold has been our bane, it's like a bars of rose in a nation. Oh, would that I had seen the day when treason thus betray us. My old grey hair would lain in clay with Bruce and loyal Wallace. But pelf and power to my last hour, and like this declaration, we are bought and sold for English gold, like a parts of the rose in a nation. Just to echo the sentiments of my fellow party member Eva Comrie regarding our brothers and sisters from abroad and migrants and people who've been living with us since we were bairns. I'm going to sing about Scotland's story. I don't know if any of you know the words, but there's a few nationalities mentioned there. It's important for me to honour them today because these are the people who will help us grow our economy, restore public services and be part of our future, or the future of our children and our grandchildren, everybody who comes here, because everybody here has come from somewhere else, that's for sure. Like Crowley from West Donegal, you came to Glasgow with nothing at all, but the landlord and the Africa Corps. You came to Glasgow with nothing at all. Abraham Kaplan, from Vilnius you came. You were headed for New York, but Leeds where you stayed. You built a great business, benefits all. You came to my land with nothing at all. So in the old story I read that they came, the Gael and the Picts, the Angle and Dane, but so did the Irishmen, Jew and Ukraine. They're in Scotland's story and they're worth just the same. Joseph D'Angelo dreams of the day when Italian kids in the grass market played. His shop when the boys went to war. But old Joe's a big man and he forgave all. So in the old story I read that they came, the Gael and the Pict, the Angle and Dane. So they're in Scotland's story and they're worth just the same. Christina Mackay, I learned of your name when you travelled south from Delhi one day. Raised the whole family in one room they say, and the X on the line stands in place of your name. So in the old story I read that they came, the Gael and the Pict, the Angle and Dane, and a poor migrant girl who could not sign her name. In my land's story and it's worth just the same. All through the story the immigrants came, the Gael and the Pict, the Angle and Dane, from Pakistan, India and from the Ukraine. Scotland's story and they're worth just the same.
Thanks for that, Andy. Next up, somebody who's no stranger to the Yes Movement, a very, very passionate speaker and a personal friend of mine, the chairman of Hope Over Fear, Tommy Sheridan.
Thanks very much, Sean. Brothers and sisters, it's a great pleasure to be here again, and it's very important that we're here on this day to celebrate and honour and remember those that came before us, those giants whose shadow we walk in today. Some people will say, particularly on the left, people on the socialist left, particularly I get some messages from friends in England who will say, Tommy, why are you celebrating a battle that took place 708 years ago? Why are you celebrating a battle that was kings against other kings? Why are you celebrating the bloodshed, the loss of life that took place over 2 days on the 23rd, 24th of June, 1314? And you know, I'm wearing a t-shirt that kind of answers that. I'm wearing a t-shirt that's got some names on it to highlight the internationalism that this movement has to be about. Fidel, Che, Hugo Chavez, Evo Morales, these people from Cuba, from Venezuela, from Bolivia, no one would say to them, forget your history. Forget your history. Nobody would say that. Why should they say to us to forget our history? Why should we forget our history? I'll tell you why. The British establishment and the ruling class want us to forget our history. They want us to forget that Scotland was an independent country for more years than we've been part of the British Union. That's what they want us to forget. And we don't forget it. We do remember and honour and celebrate the sacrifice of those who gave up their lives to fight for the independence of their country. Alan Smith made the point earlier that independence is not about the past, and he's right. It's certainly not just about the past. As the trade union banners read loud and clear, the past we inherit, the future we build. Independence and the independence movement has always been progressive. I tried to explain at a meeting last night, a meeting among socialists in England, some of whom still think the movement for independence is nationalistic, xenophobic, narrow. And I say no, the independence movement here in Scotland is primarily progressive. On independence marches, you will see the banners to welcome refugees. On independence marches, you'll see the placards saying loud and clear, Burns not bombs. We're an anti-war, pro-peace movement who open our hearts, who open our hands to those who wish to come and live and work with us. That's why today, here in Bannockburn, we send a message of solidarity to the brothers and sisters marching in Edinburgh on the Pride demonstration today. We're part of that movement. And we send from today in Bannockburn a message of solidarity to all of the striking RMT workers and picket lines up and down the length and breadth of England, Wales and Scotland. Because the RMT strikers are not just fighting for themselves, they're fighting for every single worker here in Scotland and England and Wales. As Mick Lynch himself said the other night, the bosses, they want the workers to beg. We say no, we don't beg, we bargain. We bargain for the best deal possible for working class people. That's what trade unionism is all about. And brothers and sisters, this independence movement has to be about making things better in an independent Scotland. We have to say loud and clear, we're fighting for independence, not just to change the flags that fly from the municipal buildings up and down the length and breadth of Scotland. We're fighting for independence, not just to change the flags. We want to change the pensions. We want to change the wages. We want to change the ownership of the industries like our oil and our gas and our transport. That's the independence we're fighting for. I'll finish my remarks, brothers and sisters. It's very, very privileged to be here and share the platform with the speakers that we've had already and the speakers that are still to come. But I say this, particularly to our comrades and friends within the SNP, you have had the faith and the support of the people of Scotland in 3 general elections now, 15, 17 and 19. You got our support in the Scottish elections of 16 and 21. You've had 3 votes in the Scottish Parliament stating categorically that the Parliament believes in Indy Ref 2.
Here.
Brothers and sisters, that's 7 mandates. 7 mandates. Our appeal to Nicola on Tuesday, when she stands up in that Parliament, is not just that she says that Scotland will be better, independent. We know that. I want her to stand up on Tuesday and not just say there will be a referendum on independence next year. I want her to name the date for independence referendum next year. Our appeal to Nicola is name the date and we will come together. We will come together regardless of any differences, regardless of any of the issues that we need sorted out in the future. We'll come together on the single cause of winning that referendum. And brothers and sisters, last time we started at 23%, this time we're starting at 50%. We are going to win. Name the date. Thanks very much.
Brilliant, Tommy. Could Alison Graham come to the stage, please? Next speaker is Alison Graham, Commonweal Board Member, Director and Activist. Come on, she's a bit of a roar.
Hello everyone! Change is happening. It is happening across these islands. Independence is normal. We have to be a part of that. The choice we've got in front of us is, the choice we've got in front of us is, are we going to have change done to us, or are we going to be part of that change? Are we going to be the ones that shape the change and the people, or have it done to us by politicians? Scotland's future will not be determined by Westminster. It will not even be determined at Holyrood. It will be determined up here in our mindset, in the people. We have to believe not just that we can thrive as an independent Scotland, but we should thrive as an independent Scotland. There's lots of complexities to build a new nation. It's been spoken about by a lot of the speakers before me, but one of the things in Commonweal is really understanding what is the possibilities, what is the potential in this country that is energy rich, food rich, water rich, all the commodities across the world that are so precious, and yet we have got people who are struggling to survive, let alone thrive in this country. We really do have to change our mindset, and we have to do it now, because change will happen, and it will either happen to us and be disempowered, or we take our voices and we make an empowered change. We've had a devolved parliament now since 1999. It has not protected Scotland. It has not protected us from Brexit. It has not protected us from Tory austerity that we have never voted for. So what on earth are we to do? We have, as Tommy said, a start point that those who came before us would have given their right arm for. The people that we have, the great minds, the strong arms and the passionate hearts that have come before us have paved this road. All we have to do is actually walk it. We had an open door in 2014, legally, constitutionally. 45% of our population walked through that. We must learn why we did not get that result, and we must change. And the change is in our own minds, it's in our heads. We have to have the confidence that we should determine our own decisions, because Scotland can either be in a position in perpetuity that we just keep trying, or we can actually achieve it and see what we can do with our potential. The natural resources in Scotland are only part of our story. It's the intellectual capacity across this land and the wherewithal and the creativity that we see in this independence movement. That is in communities across Scotland. What is Scotland if it's not a series of people and communities? And these communities all have something to offer this country. So before we go and take our next steps, I think we really need to understand what we need to do as individuals, what we can contribute as individuals within this movement. Because if we do truly believe in Scotland, and do we believe in Scotland? Well, we believe in the people, because the people are Scotland. So if we understand that what we believe in becomes our thoughts, we start to shape what that vision, that potential can look like. This is not a transactional election, and the politicians have to get their heads around that. This is a relationship with the country. We have to convince people that will never vote for independence that they will be safe and they can survive and thrive. So we have to really get into people's mindsets and change them from this feudal mindset that we are looking for heroes. We have the Bruce over to our right. What he did at Bannockburn was he inspired the people. We need people who want to lead not for personal power, but lead to inspire. Tommy has mentioned great heroes across the world. What about James Connolly? What about John McLean? Who knows these people? They took a collective and they made it powerful. We can do that. We can make this change, because our beliefs become our thoughts become our words become our actions become our habits, and our habits become our values, and those values become our destiny, and that is Scotland's destiny, and that is to be a normal, independent country. Thank you.
It's really windy.
Thanks for that, Alison. And our next speaker up is Mr. Kenny McCaskill from the Alba Party. Let's have a big hand.
Thank you, it's a privilege to be here. We do stand in a field where giants once tread. The reason we're here is not simply to remember a battle that took place over 700 years ago. It's to remember and keep alive the cause of Scotland. Because had that battle been lost, then it wouldn't be Bathgate no more, Linwood no more, it would have been Scotland no more. But the cause of Scotland survived that day, and it's been kept alive even during 300 years of an incorporating union. Other nations in Europe and elsewhere in the world have disappeared, but Scotland remains. We've now got a devolved parliament, but we've not got the independent parliament that we need to be able to provide for our people. We have had dark days in our lives before, but I have to say, darker days are coming once again. Poverty that I thought would never come back to Scotland, poverty not seen by my generation growing up in the 60s, is now stalking our communities. And yet our country is energy rich. Scotland is rich in energy. We have oil and gas and we're self-sufficient. We have renewables coming out our ears so much we don't know what to do with them, and they're going to cable them south. And yet our people now have a euphemism entering the English language called self-disconnection. It's not self-disconnection. People are not choosing not to have their sunbed or not to put the cooker on. They are not able to heat their homes or power their homes. And let's remember, in energy-rich Scotland, where so many Scots are fuel poor, what does self-disconnection mean? It doesn't mean a choice between heating your home or feeding your kids. It's about being able to power up your mobile phone to seek employment. It's about being able to power up the iPad for your laddie who's been given it from the school. About being able to wash your kids' clothes so they can go smart. It's about being able to put on the dialysis machine that you need to keep alive. In an energy-rich country, it is disgraceful. And that's why I'm delighted to hear that we're having a referendum next year. I wish we'd had one before. I think there's been opportunities in recent years when we should have and could have struck, but strike we must. And so I will unite for a referendum next year. I will defer to authority in the ordered guest movement. I will leaflet, chat doors, do what's necessary as I did in 2014, and we will all be united. But let's be clear. A referendum there must be. I don't want marched up to the top of the hill and marched back down again. That's not acceptable. We should have had a referendum by now. It will come in 23 and on it goes. And let me say, excuses won't be accepted. If for some reason Boris doesn't blink, if for some reason they can't get it through the court system, if for some reason we can't have a referendum in 2023, well, let me say this, it won't be acceptable to say, well, we'll just have to have one more push. We'll just have to have one more mandate. We'll just have to go into one more election, wiping out the Tories. We've done that in election after election. So I'll unite for the referendum in 23, but if a referendum doesn't come, then 2023, now's the day and now's the hour. There are other ways by which we can take our people on to an independent country in which we can get access to our oil and gas and renewable energy. We can look at other ways at home, domestically and internationally. It'll simply not be acceptable to say, back in your box, Jock, you're not getting a referendum. And it will not be acceptable for the leaders of the independence movement to say, give us one more mandate onto that referendum, and if not, then it's alternative ways, democratically and peacefully, we will achieve our independence.
Thanks, Kenny. A big thanks to the Scottish Independence Foundation, who also provide funding for us. And our next speaker is Ian Grant from the Scottish Independence Foundation. Come on, he's a roar!
Hi. Having said that, the introduction about the Scottish Independence Foundation, I'm not going to speak about that at all. I think there have been a number of pivotal moments in Scottish history, and of course Bannockburn was clearly one. We had a march in Arbroath, and of course the Arbroath Declaration was another, for other rather different reasons. The fact It was the assertion for the first time of Scottish popular sovereignty. But there have been other moments in Scottish history when Scotland has not been strong, has acted naively, with weakness. I mean, who else could have asked Edward I to choose our king in 1290? And then, of course, we had our negotiators for the Act of Union, or the Treaty of Union, in 1706. And they did a good job for us, didn't they? So with a strength of purpose, we can assert our freedom and the resilience of our nation. But with naive, sweet reasonableness, we can destroy that freedom and act as a colony rather than a partner. Just now, we're again at this sort of pivotal moment in history. If we go back over the Treaty of Union, it was allegedly a union of equals. It never was, of course, and we know that. But the illusion was maintained to some extent by both partners, by England and Scotland, to some extent, until in fact we agreed to have basically a subordinate parliament in 1997. I say that with the benefit of hindsight, but a number of the speakers have pointed out that devolution, a devolved parliament, has not had the power to look after our nation. And then, of course, after that, the Supreme Court of the UK was slipped in a few years later, contrary to the provisions of the Act of Union. Once again, we meekly agreed. And we now have a Scottish Parliament becoming more subservient through Brexit, through internal market bills, shared prosperity, and so on, bypassing Holyrood and our arrogant Alistair Jack telling us to suck it up. If we have a dispute over the referendum, it goes before the Supreme Court of the UK. Who's got the majority in the Supreme Court of the UK? And it's certainly not us. So, my view, we've got to change the language. Scotland will not be leaving the UK or be let go when we regain our independence. The UK without Scotland is no longer the UK. It is Little England, unless Wales or Northern Ireland decide to stay. Without Scotland, England has insufficient natural resources for its huge population. We have oil and gas 5 times our needs, and excessive water, more than enough renewable electricity, timber and food. Our seas are full of fish and sea shellfish. We have a trade surplus and would be seriously prosperous if our resources were not plundered at no cost, to the rest of the UK and no gain to us. So I think we have to shout out what we have given to the UK. It is our southern neighbours who should be really worried by Scottish independence. Instead, the Unionists try and convince us of our poverty, our inability to cope, despite Scotland being surrounded by small, prosperous, independent countries, thriving without London control, thriving because they don't have London control, while we have folk living in extreme fuel poverty in an energy-rich country where we allow our resources to be controlled, or rather plundered, by a combination of pernicious Westminster government and international capital. So, I'm delighted that the FM has, in the words of our media, fired the starting gun for IndyRef 2. I'm delighted that we're focused again on our goal of independence. And I'll be delighted if she leads us to IndyRef 2 and wins it. I'm not so happy about asking for a Section 30 order again. I wouldn't ask Johnson for anything, I would take it. Then after a negative response, we put a bill through the Scottish Parliament for a consultative referendum, provided, of course, the Lord Advocate and Presiding Officer agree. And if it's passed, it'll be challenged in the illegal Supreme Court. And even if it survives and is won, we still have to negotiate with the UK government for independence. So, Scotland, let's get behind the FM and make the case for independence and a yes vote, but let's keep our eyes open. We still need a clear path to independence, and it may not well not involve a referendum, because the choice for Scotland is stark. We either continue to live as tenants in our own country, allowing others to make decisions for us and help themselves to our land and resources, or we end the Union, retake our independence and live in a potentially prosperous independent country where we make the decisions and live with the consequences. It's something we need to unite behind the FN, but we have to be prepared to win a Westminster election on a mandate for independence, not a mandate for an NDRF 2. We have to be prepared to remove our MPs from Westminster, and we have to be prepared to re-establish a genuine independent parliament in Scotland. I am certain that having our democratic rights thwarted by London will ensure that we have recognition from around Europe and around the world. But the key thing is it'll take confidence in ourselves, bravery on the part of our leadership and on the part of ourselves, but it'll be worth it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for that, Ian. Next up, all under one banner's own, Neil Mackay. He's a few tunes. Come on. Oh! A bit higher.
Hello everybody, what a pleasure it is to be here. Big echo what all the speakers have said, it's a joy, great to see everybody here. So I'm going to do 3 songs with the Flower of Scotland, the Black Douglas and Liberty. For Flower of Scotland, just want to say 2 points. It's to be the nation again, not a nation again, because Scotland's been a nation since around 843 AD. It's never ceased being a nation. So it's to be the nation, like back then at Bannockburn, at the Wars of Independence, it stood up against tyranny. And I've changed one of the lines so it's for a land that seemed lost, because Scotland's never been lost, it's just been forgotten. It's never been lost, and now it's getting remembered. Here we go. Oh, flower of Scotland, when will we see your likes again? That fought and died for your wee bit hill and glen, and stood against them. Proud Edward's armies, we sent them homeward. They think again. Those days are past now, and in the past they must remain. But we can still rise now and be the nation again that stood against them. Proud Edward's armies, we send them homeward. They think again. The hills are bare now, and autumn leaves lie thick and still. For a land that seemed lost, but now so dearly held, that stood against them. Proud Edward's armies, we send them homeward. They think again.
Black Douglas is next. Many of you know the Black Douglas who carried Bruce's heart. The original Braveheart was, turned to Bruce Wallace as well, but carried his heart in a casket to one of the Crusades, so they get the term Braveheart. But yep, one of Bruce's captains. Here we go. There was a man, say dark and true, was Scotland, Lord, say dear. There was a king, well lang will rue, the Scots were played him fair. Gan cry the hounds, oh Douglas Vale, gan strength the entering foe, gan won spears, oh let us tale, that Edward leads the foe. He wore the cross her Andrew bore by the steps of Calvary. He won the sword a Robert wore by the field of Albany. God shear the chains of slavery, God dance a liege manly, God ring the bell of liberty, shod with the metal free. Upon the greenscape green, he held a leopard and a tide by the field all into thee. Gan shine the shield your father wore, gan strike your metal free, gan shine the helm your father wore by the field of Torwood Lea. He rode your neck when it was murk, done by the leopard's lair. He chased the tyrant in his shirt, or in the field safe there. Gan pack your bags, ye English loons, gan tag your banners here, gan tag your king was shot through and lost the bloody game. Thank you. And last but not least, Liberty. Thanks again. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. By the cross her Andrew bore, by the sword her William wore, by the crown her Robert swore, to win her liberty. Call the falcon, brave the glen, call the eagle, brave the bend, call the lion, brave his stand, to win her liberty. Oh, by the man was faith was old, by the man they sold for gold, by the man they'll never hold, to win her liberty. Call the thieves, oh let it sail, call the spears, oh Annandale, call the brave, oh Yarrow Vale, to win her liberty. win our liberty. Oh, by the field that once was green, by the shield that silver sheen, by the sword in battle keen, to win our liberty. Bless the man for his faith we hold, bless the man in chains they sold, bless the man in cloth of gold, will won our liberty. Oh, bless the man for his faith we hold, bless the man in chains they sold, bless the man in cloth of gold, will won our liberty. Oh, bless the man in cloth of gold, will won our liberty. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Neil. Could Amanda Burger come to the stage, please? If she's around. Burger, sorry. Could Jim Fairley come to the stage, please? Give Jim a big shout. He's here to speak to us of his sovereignty. Come on!
Good afternoon, fellow nationalists. My name is Jim Fairley, and we are privileged to be gathered here to commemorate the victory of the Scottish people under the leadership of Robert Bruce over the might of the English army. We are privileged to gather here because this is hallowed ground. This ground is very special to the people of Scotland. The movement that started with William Wallace at Stirling Bridge and then Falkirk culminated here at Bannockburn. I last spoke here in 1983 as the deputy leader of the SNP, and I'm thankful to all under one banner. One, for asking me to speak, and two, for their efforts in bringing together the disparate groups which now form the independence movement. I joined the SNP in 1955 at the age of 15, and have been a hardline, uncompromising Scottish nationalist ever since. I joined the SNP just 20 years after it was formed, and I believed, as all traditional nationalists in the SNP believed at the time, that from independence all else flowed. Our aim was to unite the Scottish people, whatever place they occupied on the political spectrum, in the belief that unless they broke away from the stultifying union with England, they would never see the kind of Scotland they wanted, the kind of Scotland they sought, the kind of Scotland that they have striven for. That is even more true today. Sir Alexander Malcolm McEwen, the first leader of the SNP, made two observations that are just as true today as they were then. He said, "No great national movement was ever founded on caution and half-hearted measures." And
Secondly, objections to independence are not so much reasoned arguments as vague apprehensions. But fear is more important than reason and must be dealt with. Scots still to be persuaded to believe in the independence of their own country are not our enemies. They are our opponents. And we have welcomed refugees, as has been said by other speakers. We have welcomed people from all parts of the world who have chosen to live here. Our enemies are not even the English people, many of whom don't pay much attention to what goes on up here. Our enemy is the British state. Jim Sillars recently commented that the current independence movement, factionalised and riddled with dissent, marches without thinking. I commented on Twitter he was only half right. The independence movement stopped thinking in 2014 when they accepted what they thought was an independence referendum. Independence was never on offer. A currency union, sterlingisation, it was never independence. They stopped thinking because they believed their leaders. I also said, it is because you are thinking that you're still marching, believing independence and what it offers can still be ours. That is what brings you here today, the belief that independence will come if only we keep striving for it. Jim and I debated at an SNP conference in 1984 when he said, a people riddled with self-doubt will seek a cautious and gradual approach. I asked, after 277 years, how gradual do you want to be? It is now 315 years, ladies and gentlemen. How gradual do we want to be after 315 years, striving to make the country that we want without interference from the British state? We have to face, and more importantly, we have to answer, what is it we mean by independence? I am here on behalf of sovereignty. And on their behalf, I challenge you to think what you mean by independence. Do you believe in the sovereignty of the Scottish people? Or do you believe you can hand over sovereignty to the EU and still be independent? I have asked EU supporters multiple times, please explain how Scotland can join the EU and remain independent. I have never had a single answer. In 2014, we were offered a currency union with England, leaving London in control of the Scottish economy. The currency situation has only been partly resolved. There are still those who seek sterlinisation, which means we continue to use sterling for up to a decade after independence. Are we serious about independence? We have to answer that question, not just ask it. We have to ask ourselves and be honest. Are we really in favour of independence? Do we believe in the sovereignty of the Scottish people? What is written on that borestone is Robert Bruce, King of Scots, not King of Scotland. Sovereignty lay with the Scottish people even as early as that. and it was a concept that was transported to different countries in the world, but primarily the United States of America. We have sent people of skill, of education, of learning all over the world. They have been welcomed and they have made great lives for themselves in those other countries. Why in heaven's name can they not do it in their own? The independence brought the back of Stirling Ridge when it formed the first SNP government. In 2014, it fought the Battle of Falkirk when it lost the referendum. Ladies and gentlemen, Bannockburn has still to come. This time, let's make it happen. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Jim. Next speaker is Amanda Burgower, Commonweal Executive Director. What about that? Why?
Hi. I have to say it's great to be back, and watching all these saltires blow in the wind reminds me of something. So I just want to start off by giving you a number. 1.9 million. I'm not going to tell you what it is for, but hopefully while I'm speaking, that number will begin to be clear. So I was announced as Executive Director of Commonweal. Back in 2014, Commonweal didn't yet exist. But what the executive team of Commonweal, that's me and Robin McAlpine and Craig DL, what we were doing was going around speaking to small groups of people who weren't convinced about independence, about why they should vote yes. And from then, years on, since then, as a think tank, Commonweal has published more than 200 papers that talk about policies for a better Scotland. Well, what does that actually mean? It means policies that would make our lives better, every single one of us. One of our slogans is, all of us first. We don't want to continue seeing a situation where a quarter of children in Scotland are living in poverty, where people are waiting 2 years before they can get an NHS appointment for a condition that is keeping them in pain. We need a situation and a country that puts all of us first and treats us all equally. And there's a lot of things that are going to happen before we get that, and the first one is independence. That 1.9 million number is the number of people who voted no in 2014. Now, even if every single person who voted yes turned out, and you know 100% turnout, even for something like this, is really, really difficult. But even that won't help. Assume we have an advisory referendum next year. What do you think the Unionist strategy is going to be? Boycott it. If they don't turn up, and then they can say, oh, that wasn't a high enough turnout. And so we need to be ready. That's a perfectly legitimate strategy for them to have. But we need to be ready to show that it doesn't matter whether they turn up or not. So the number we need to get ourselves is 2,002,000 yes votes, because that's the number that beats the number of people that voted no last time, but also gives us a clear yes majority. So how are we going to do that? Well, I would say social media is great. I spend a lot of time on social media. I don't think I've convinced more than one person in my 9 years on social media to change their vote. Having meetings like this are great, and I hope we see lots more of them because it inspires people like us. But really, that 2,000,000 vote that we need is going to come from us having calm, informed discussions with the people who voted no last time. With the people who didn't vote last time because they weren't sure. We need to talk with these people and talk about the benefits of independence. And to do that, we need to have a vision, not for now, but for what an independent Scotland looks like. And that vision is one that I'm going to try and help you with. Commonweal's producing a book that you will get later on this year, and it is about an independent Scotland, what that vision needs. Don't let us go into another campaign where we can't say, as a movement, what currency we're using, what we're doing about the borders. These are the things that people care about. How are they going to pay their rent or their mortgage? What currency? Will the bank still let them have a bank account? These are the things that we actually have to get much better at answering. So I'm not going to take much more of your time. It's a beautiful day. Thank you all so much for listening to me, and I will be around later if anybody's got any questions. But the book is coming out this year, A Vision for an Independent Scotland and how it all works. Thank you all very much.
Right, thanks Amanda. I want you to give us a wee shout for the Stones, who managed to raise £250 a day and is getting donated to a local food bank. Go on! Our last speaker for the day is Gwen Sinclair for Yes East Mercia. So, the last speaker, make a bit of noise, eh? Come on! Wow!
Good afternoon, Sterling Feskerma. How wonderful to see everybody here today. And I was trying to think about what I'd want to say today. There's always a lot of things I'd really like to say. And then I thought I'll maybe write something down, which I did a wee bit earlier on this morning. But you know what I was thinking when I was standing there? I was wondering, what would Robert the Bruce think of this? That there he is, standing there in his statue. What a finer sight I can't imagine anywhere else in the world, just to see that statue there. I'm an enormous fan. I think what they did at that time, read the history, fascinating what they managed to achieve. And a few other speakers today have remarked on the fact if it wasn't for what they did here at Bannockburn, Scotland wouldn't be the country that we know it to be today. But you just imagine if Robert the Bruce was actually here and he came over the hill with some of his right-hand men. Can you imagine what he would think of the Scotland that he would be coming to? I mean, could you imagine what he might have thought if he had been here on the 18th of September 2014 and he went into the newsagents and he looked down and he saw a copy of the Daily Record, and in the front of it there was a picture of which looked like a ransom note for 3 pirates, and suddenly the whole of Scotland, or rather they would like us to think that, decided to vote no against their freedom because they saw this nonsense of a vow that was there before them, before their very eyes, as they all discussed it at bus stops and behind the scenes, and they check it outright, which is what they've led us to believe, and there is potentially, I believe, some truth in it. And you know what else you might find really strange? That every single time Scotland achieves something wonderful, which every single week, as a nation which is here with one hand tied behind its back, they manage to achieve amazing things, right? We've got a beautiful, beautiful nation that people come from all over the world to see, and they don't want to leave. They hang around here, they want to stay because they love it so much. And the reason they love it is because the people are brilliant, the people are friendly, they make people feel happy, they make people feel that welcome. And it's an amazing thing that a country that we could offer. So Bruce would be happy about that fact. But what he would be pleased to see is that every single again would give the media an absolute roast in here. I despise what they've been doing to Scotland and probably to England too, to be fair. The media's run by millionaires, billionaires who have an agenda of their own. And what they want to do is they want to make us believe our country's rubbish and pointless and crap and stupid, and we're all just silly people who want our freedom. And I can imagine that Robert the Bruce would be pretty angry about that if he was here. But equally, he might have stood up and said a lot more about it than we have, and maybe we have to be a bit braver this next time. 2023, October next year. Don't be afraid when you're at work if people mention about independence. If people talk rubbish, they quote rubbish to you that they've read in one of the nonsense newspapers, we need to be brave and we need to set them straight in a very assertive way. We need to speak as though this is what's real and normal, and we mustn't allow ourselves to feel as if there's something wrong with wanting our nation to be a normal, independent nation. And also, we need to be very, very clear on the facts about what's happening to our economy, because we've been taken out of the EU. Our economy is absolutely scuppered. The report that came out a couple of weeks ago for the launch of the new independence campaign is one of the most damning reports that's ever been written about the state of the UK economy. That includes us, Scotland, at this point. So Robert the Bruce, I'm bringing him in again because I'm such a fan. If Robert the Bruce was here, he would be standing up and telling us this is our economy. We didn't vote for Brexit, and it is our time to stand up and say, do you know what? Let's have our freedom. Let's have our day to stand and celebrate, and let's also unite together, everybody we possibly can. And remember, we are living with the smallest pensions in Europe. The future for our young people is being thrown away every single day, and that isn't just me. I hate things that are just scandal mongering, because it's not what it is. It's actually a lot worse maybe than I would hope to, would even think it could be. But what is, I think, if Robert the Bruce was standing here beside me today, what he would be seeing in front of him is all the people here and all the people who organised this event and all the other events and the live streamers who are here to make sure all the people who aren't able to make it can watch this, and this event will go down in history. So we are actually making history because we want our country to be free, no different to what Robert the Bruce wanted. And I want to say thank you, and I want you all to remember what an amazing job you've done to get us this far. We wouldn't be having that referendum next year if it wasn't for every single thing that the Yes movement as a collective movement have managed to achieve. And we have had the horrible situation of COVID, which has, put a dent in the kind of gatherings we've had, but it hasn't put a dent in the numbers. Yesy Stairs' numbers of supporters actually doubled during COVID. So I would suggest that people have had time to research and they're no longer going to listen to the media. And we need to make sure that what we are putting out on social media is making sure people are becoming more informed. But basically, I just want you all, please take a bow, believe in yourselves, stand up for Scotland, and thank you to every single one of you and to every single one of the organisers. And so, okay, Feskerma, from me and from Robert the Bruce.
Thanks a lot for that, Glenn. Absolutely fantastic. Okay, the day comes to an end.
Thank you.
Again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Also, again, the Pipe Band, the Bikers, Police Scotland, Stirling Council, and also for those who fund us, Now Scotland and the Scottish Independence Foundation. We've got a few events coming up soon. Faz Lane on the 30th of July. 20th August we've got Inverness, hope to see you there. After that we've got Falkirk and Edinburgh. So thanks again for turning up.